And good morning. Welcome to Hot Seat. My distinct pleasure to have the Speaker of the Oklahoma House, Charles McCall. Good to see you, Mr. Speaker.
Great to be with you, Scott.
Hey, everybody's talking this week about the security of their deposits, the banking system, where there's a million stories to be had. But I'd like for you to take off your speaker hat and talk about, as a banker, your confidence in our banking system right now. Good?
Very strong, you bet. Of course, my family's in banking, fourth generation community bank in a rural location with locations in southern Oklahoma and North Texas, both. Of course, when something like this happens, you start to communicate. I've been in contact with the state banking department commissioner, Mick Thompson, asking him about the assessment of the situation, not just for Oklahoma, but our nation. Those have been very good. We know that there are no uninsured deposits in any of those banks in terms of banks here in Oklahoma or customers. We know that the depositors are going to be made whole by the announcement following the closing of the bank. So everything is good. These banks that have been closing, it looks to be more of a liquidity issue for those banks, not a problem loan situation. So I think everything is strong. People are, banks are ready. They're communicating with their customers to make sure they know that. FDIC does provide insurance for depositors of all banks. The base amounts $250,000, but really it covers a lot more than that, Scott. A family of two, a married couple, can actually have $1.5 million worth of FDIC coverage at one bank location. Family of four can have $5 million. So just, depositors can always, and bankers always talk with their large depositors to make sure the deposits are structured properly so that they're fully covered.
It's different times. I mean, this was, in the old days, for a bank run, people lined up down the street. Now this, okay? Right. I mean, this was basically a Twitter bank run. Your thoughts about moving forward in the new era that we're in terms of banking?
Well, I think there's, once again, this is, for banks in Oklahoma, we have to understand that Silicon National Bank was roughly $200 billion in total assets. The largest bank that we have in Oklahoma might be at $60 billion. And so these are very, very, very large institutions. Their client relationships, they don't have personal relationships with people within these institutions like you do in Oklahoma banks and most banks across the country. So that connection, that personal relationship creates a lot of trust and in faith. And when customers have concerns or questions, they can get those questions answered quickly, which helps insulate against these types of runs. But within the realm of fintechs, fintech banks, banks that largely are driven just by technology relationships, you see an example of when a run starts, how it can quickly accelerate and cause the closure of a bank.
And crypto, that was another one this past week.
Yes, that's another common denominator and correlation between these banks that were closed was they were large crypto banks.
Let me pivot to a financial aspect in the state of Oklahoma. I have you put your speaker hat back on here. You have a very large education reform package over in the Senate. There's been a lot said about that. Also, the House has moved forward on some tax cuts. The question I get most often is, can Oklahoma afford to do what you're wanting to do, the House is wanting to do on education reform and do tax cuts?
Yes, you can do both. With the education plan, if we are going to, the plan that the House moved forward on its education plan this year, it's a win for every kid and every parent in the state, no matter what educational avenue you want to pursue for your child. Everyone wins, and that includes every teacher in the state and every school district in the state. With that price tag, we can afford that. There's no question about it. Beyond that, tax cuts, tax reform, still available to do. We're probably going to have to pick, the highest priority, top two priorities between the House and the Senate, but Yeah, we can do them both. We have roughly $1.8 billion to $2 billion of additional appropriating authority this year. We would never dream of using all of our authority. We have not done that in the past few years. But we easily have $1 billion worth of cushion here to balance a great education plan with some tax reform.
All right, looking forward, everybody's going to be watching this week to see what the Fed does on Wednesday. I mean, it doesn't appear that inflation is slowing down that fast. As you look into the crystal ball and you look at Oklahoma finances over the next decade or so, are you confident that we're not going to get in the same position we were a few years ago?
Yeah, I think yesterday it looked like most everybody, 75% of the market was betting on a 0.25% raise next week. Only 25% of the market believe that the Fed would hold rates where they are. It's going to be, I think it's going to be tough and dicey within the tech sector going forward, but the other sectors of our economy are doing pretty well. You saw that the job numbers were strong for February and jobs created across the country. Unemployment's still very low in our state. So even people who that might have to change jobs or look at a different industry, those other industries are absorbing those. There's still a lot of opportunity, and I expect things to stay pretty positive. But there are some talks. There's still talks I see on the national headline about some of the large banks in the country predicting recession by third quarter. But Oklahoma, that's what we're focused on. Oklahoma is always late to enter into a recession, and it's always exits a national recession early. So we always have those working for us. We have this historic level of reserves stashed away here at the state level, so we should be fine regardless of what happens.
A couple more questions. One would be, we have seen the state trying to get more competitive. It's one of your motivating factors. We lost out on another big campaign this week. We went to Canada. What do we need to do to be more competitive, both nationally and internationally?
I think we're on the right track, Scott, and to be in the final run for these companies is historic for the state. We can't compete with a country that offers a lithium mining rights and whatnot. We understand why they didn't come to Oklahoma. But we're in the running. I believe I'm told by Commerce, there's a handful of companies still looking at Oklahoma with some great size. It's great to be able to talk to these mega companies that employ 3,000 plus people, but we have people looking at the state of Oklahoma that are looking to bring 1,000 jobs or 500, and so we'll be able to place those regionally or centrally. Those opportunities are still there, but on this one, we've missed, but it was great to be in the top two.
My last question is, it's been well documented, there is some friction between the House and the Senate over the past year. All the chambers, the executive branch run by Republicans. For people that watch legislative activity, are you confident that everybody can get along to the point to get a lot of these projects across the line by the end of May?
Absolutely. We will have a budget by the end of May. We'll move some very significant policy this year. There will be a lot of wins here in the state of Oklahoma for this session. In terms of friction, that's the way government's designed. I mean, you have a three-branch government system between the legislative branch, which we have two legislative chambers, the executive branch, the governor's branch of government, and the courts. And so everything has been very positive. There's definitely policy that the House is very much interested in, and we don't want political games played with those policies. We understand the Senate's got to give it an up or down, and that's fine. That's all the House is asking for, is fair treatment and an up or down vote on the House's education plan. If they say no, they say no. That's their decision. We've made our decision. We just don't want any political games played with those things. We'll see a lot of great Senate bills starting the House in 2 weeks. We have one more week of deadline for House bills. The Senate's still taking up their bills one more week for the deadline. Then we'll exchange and move forward. But no, I'm happy with the way things are progressing. We've had a lot of opportunities, and we're going to continue to look long term and create a very stable environment here in the state of Oklahoma economically for the people well beyond this session.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for your time today.
Hey, Scott, always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much, sir. See this again at news9.com/Yearboat Council, and follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Mitchell Talks.